Hello and welcome to the CBB Super Show. I am your host, Walter Waddell, aka Deuce85, the niche sports connoisseur, and I am in a great mood tonight. Hope you guys are as well. It is the night before Christmas Eve, if you will. The Final Four kicks off tomorrow. We are down to 4 teams. It's so crazy. We're down to 4 teams here. The semifinals, 2-game slate. But wouldn't you know it, the Crown Tournament is also going on. They had all this time to plan it, and they did it on different days, but somehow, some way, the Crown semifinals are also taking place tomorrow. So 2 games becomes 4. We have 4 games we're going to break down, 2 in the morning / early afternoon, and then the final 4 in the evening and night. It would be great opportunity for DK to give us a 4-game slate. In fact, I would have absolutely been smitten with a 4-game slate, and I think all of you would have been as well. We didn't get that. We got 2 separate 2-game slates. That's okay. I don't think DraftKings was even going to do anything for the Crown semifinals, but I'm a pretty consistent and can be borderline annoying when I want to be to the DK Assist account and was DMing them constantly saying, you want to have some Crown DFS. We got to have it. What are we going to do? Let's get a 4-game slate going. I know you already released the 2-gamer, but let's get the 4-gamer. We didn't get the 4-gamer, but they did give us the 2-gamer. So we're going to talk about all 4 games here tonight. Appreciate every one of you who is tuning in live to check us out. Please make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the FTN YouTube channel. You don't want to miss any notifications that come through at FTN Fantasy and at Deuces85 on all social media platforms. Turn those notifications on. I'm all about the transfer portal right now. I have been retweeting my fingers off about all this news that has been coming out. Lots and lots of things. I'm working on a transfer portal document, basically for college football and college basketball. Every team, every conference, when talk here, will have outgoing transfers, incoming transfers, current roster, everything. This is my Magna Carta, if you will. I'm very excited about that. It's going to be a great, great time. Regrettably have to tell you that tonight's show was going to have a special guest co-host, my man Mike Cutri, who is the living legend among men, and he was all ready to do the show. He was super excited. I invited him. I rarely invite people onto the show, but I was very excited to have him come on here and break down the Final Four for us. But he's sick. He's very sick. He tried to take a nap earlier today. He's all loaded up on NyQuil, DayQuil, and everything in between, but he's just not feeling well enough to do the show. So you're going to get solo Walter Waddell here, which you guys have got 98% of the shows this year. So I think it's going to be okay. We'll be okay. We would have Adam Young on, but he's in his Eeyore mode right now. He's oh, woe is me, college basketball is dead, the transfer portal is just killing everything, and the tournament is chalk, and he's just in his emo phase right now. So we're going to let him do that, and the show is going to continue on here. So I'm very, very excited. Thank you guys very much. And if you're tuning in here and it's your first time ever, let me just give you a quick rundown about what we do here on the Super Show. We break down every single game available from a DFS perspective. Yes, mostly from DraftKings, but don't worry, my FanDuel folks, we love you as well. We also talk about any prop betting opportunities and best bets as well. The show goes on. Green screens and window trips is what we are about. So I'm going to pop up some projections here that I have. We might as well start with the 2-game, I'm going to call it the early slate, I guess. It does start at 10:30 a.m. PST, which is Boise State, Nebraska. And then we get the UCF Villanova game at 1 p.m. That'll end and take us right into the Final Four. But if it gets into overtime, there's going to be some overlap there. So we'll see. Really weird that the Crown is doing this. But hey, I love it. Crown, CBI, NIT, all of that stuff has been extremely profitable for us. So we're going to continue to grind our butts off here with the Crown tournament. The title game will be a showdown on Sunday. So they're going to have the back-to-backs there. And then, of course, that takes us into the national title and one shining moment on Monday. And then we are done with college basketball, at least for games. We're never done. We don't truly sleep in May like John Rothstein says, because there's all that transfer portal news. Then there's the spring game stuff for football. Then there's preseason NFL. Then we're in college football week 0. And then we're into October and November, and college basketball season starts again just before you know it. And TBT, WNBA, and all kinds of other niche sports that I will be covering during the summer. And of course, our MLB team is going to be crushing, cracking, and decimating all of our competition here. FTN, we find the edge. All right, let's do this. Let's do this thing. Let's share our screen. Let's find it. Let's get this going here. We're going to make lots and lots and lots of money. We're going to get our futures through too. We've got a few futures left. Florida predominantly is our best one that we have left. Really hoping the Gators can close the things. And then we have a future on Houston as well. So as long as Houston plays Florida in the title game, we're going to be feeling pretty good about things. So hopefully that happens. Duke and Auburn, it's been a great journey, but I do not want them to advance. I don't think you guys do either, outside of some Duke fans, of course, which I don't think any Duke fans really watch this show, so we're probably okay. All right, let's get into this. Boise State versus Nebraska. Let me get my hold on here. So ill-prepared. I was really sad that we weren't going to get a guest host today, but it's okay. Rather Mike gets healthy here. All right, Crown semifinals. Let's do it. Let's talk about it. Boise State versus Nebraska. This will be semifinal number 1. Boise State is a 1.5-point favorite, and it's a total of 155.5. My projected starting lineups here, and there's been some wackiness. The first day of Crown was wild because there's transfers, there's guys sick, there's guys who didn't travel, there's some guys who came out of the rafters like Sting. It was wild. There's tons of edge. At this point, we know who's there and who's not for these teams. So Boise State projected starting lineup: Tyson Degenhart, Alvaro Cardenas, Andrew Meadow, Pearson Carmichael, and Omar Stanley, although I don't really know why he starts. He plays like 8 minutes a game. I don't know what happened to him. He was really good last year. He's not really that good this year. I don't know. Nebraska, Bryce Williams, Juwan Gary, Sam Hoiberg, Berkey, and then Cale Jacobson, who started last game and was phenomenal, put up 30-plus fantasy points. All right. I feel like I owe it to Berkey. I always struggle with his name. I do have the pronunciation, and I've said it many times. It's okay. Ready? Buyuk Tungel. It's really hard to say, but it ends with gel. Buyuk Tungel. Berkey is a pretty easy one to say. Anyways, he is the 5th starter. Let's get the projection screen here up for Boise. I had a magnificent slate the other day. Javon Buchanan, man. How about the former NAIA first-team All-American who averaged 20 and 6 in his NAIA days? He had an absolutely monstrous game. That was one of those games where, because variance-wise, it's been kind of hit or miss for me, and I've ran pretty bad. I had a pretty nice payout or pending payout on a prop yesterday, and all I needed was Wuka Poplar to score 17. He had 14 in the first half, had 2 in the second half, so he didn't hit that. That's the kind of stuff that's been gut punching me lately. But I knew I ran good with a 4.4K, 5% owned Javon Buchanan scoring 37.75 DraftKings points. He put up 27 real. It was a unreal game for him. He was magnificent. He played 25 minutes, and you got to think he's going to play a ton of minutes here because he was obviously one of, if not the best player on the floor. And he'll get some rostership here because of that. But starting out, you have the projection screen on there. What you can see, and for those of you who are new, we've got the DK salary, my projected minutes for that player. For those that want to do some prop betting stuff, you have the points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, 3-point shots made here. Some other information here. field goal percentage and all that stuff. And then this is where you'll see DK fantasy points, X value, which I always sort that column by, and then FanDuel points here. This column over here, max, is what they have scored as a DK high. All right, so that's the rundown. So number one player on the slate who's going to be dang near unanimously, universally owned, Cale Jacobson, and will likely start again. He got the start over Andrew Morgan, who started the first crown game for Nebraska, and Morgan was really good off the bench. I almost feel like, could Freddie bench his son Sam? He probably won't. I think the right choice would be to bench Berkey, but I don't know if he will. But Cale Jacobson likely going to start 3.8K. He played over 35 minutes last game. You can see here he projects bonkers. He had a ton of steals and blocks. Like, he was absolutely just otherworldly. It was like, it had to be like an out-of-body experience here for Cale. And I wasn't that high on him going up against Georgetown just because his shot rate's like 8%. He does not shoot very much. Did take 7 shots in that game, which was a lot for him, but it was the assist 4, the blocks 2, the steals 3, and the rebounds 6 that really pushed him over the top. And you see in their first crown game against ASU, he had 17.5. So a no-brainer play to play Cale Jacobson. Teams just not respecting him because why would they? And he's making them pay. But the way he's playing, he's an automatic lock button play. Even against a Boise State defense that's really quite difficult, right? After that, you get a bunch of guys under 4X because you have Nebraska, who is pretty good defensively interior. They don't defend the 3 particularly well. And then you have the Boise State side, which defensively, they've been pretty nails, right? The game, pull it up here. Boise State's crown games, they've been just kind of like business-like. You know, they're a team that probably should have been in the NCAA tournament or close. You know, they didn't have the claim or the right like maybe West Virginia did, but very close. But they've just been murdering. 89-59 over George Washington. Butler gave them a game, but I never really felt like Boise State was going to lose that game. Even when Butler was pushing it close and had the lead at times because Finley Bizjack was destroying from long range, I never had the feeling that Boise State was going to lose that game. Tyson Degenhart was awesome, 21, 7, and 5, flirted with the triple-double there. Again, Javon Buchanan, 27 real, former NAIA All-American. He's a stud. And then they got some nice production out of guys like Andrew Meadow, Alvaro Cardenas. Like, this is a pretty deep Boise State team. So defensively, there's both really solid teams. You're not going to see very high projections. But Cale Jacobson, obvious. Javon Buchanan at 5'1". I'll probably go back to him. I don't, you know, it's going to be a chase for everybody else. It's not going to be a chase for me because I got that really good game out of him. And his price has come up, certainly, but 5'1", still very much in play. I don't think he's going to play less minutes. He got 27 last time. See, I've got him projected for about 23. If we think he's going to creep back up into that 27 range, I mean, he's way overvalued once again. Clearly going to be one of the guys that they look to. RJ Keen's mostly a rebounder, kind of does some facilitating, not really looking for his shot. Cardenas can score when he has to, but he's more of a facilitator as well. Andrew Meadows, a little bit of a ball hog. That's okay. And Julian Booley, the freshman point guard, who's going to be real nice next year, doesn't get enough minutes. So Buchanan and Degenhart, I think, are going to do a lot of the scoring here. And 3-point shooters against Nebraska have been getting off. So there's going to be some, 3-point upside by several of these Boise State players. And when you look at the Boise State roster and who's the best at shooting threes, it's not like they have a murderer's row of 3-point shooters. They're not like that as a team. They're not the best shooters in the world. Cardenas shoots about 32%, Degenhart 34%, Buchanan about 32%, and then Pearson Carmichael about 31%, Andrew Meadow 34%. So nobody really shoots lights out here, but they will get volume. Buchanan did hit 1 last time out. Tyson Degenhart was 3 of 6, Cardenas 2 of 3, Andrew Meadow hit 1, Pearson Carmichael was 2 of 3. So, they're just good enough there, and they shot probably the best they've shot all year from long range against Butler, 45%. Both teams were just scorching the nets. So Cale Jacobson, Javon Buchanan, it's not a lot of salary there. I do like the idea of going to Degenhart. He's not the best projection in the world, and he is priced up at 9.4, but I would trust paying that for him over 8.5 for Cardenas. I think a lot of people will roster Alvaro. We saw that the last Boise State slate as well. but I just trust Degenhart at this point. I think he's kind of a lock for 30 plus, and I think this is a slate where we're going to want to get those floor points. We want raw points. That's going to win the day here. I don't know that we're going to have a ton of upside from the various pieces. You're also going to make a decision. It's been really obvious for us at the FTM community to keep rostering Bryce Williams and Juwan Gary. Juwan Gary put up a 40 last time out. Georgetown just had no interior. They weren't going to stop him. You can see at 9K, he doesn't have the best projection either. It's now 10-1 for Bryce Williams. So you're going to have to make a decision. You're not getting Degenhart, Gary, and Bryce Williams unless you're going to super punt, but you can roster 2 of them. And you still have another game on the slate that you're going to have to look to. So Degenhart and Bryce Williams, I definitely think is a really strong way to go. Juwan Gary is going to once again be super low owned. So the leverage that he provides is great. And he's just like, doesn't want to stop playing. He's very involved in Nebraska. It's stated before that he doesn't want to take that jersey off. Like, he's going to give it his all. So I'm really high on Juwan Gary once again. Andrew Morgan is a nice GP look at 5.5. He's playing lights out. And then, you do have Berkey all the way there at 4.2, RJ Keene at 4.3. So there's some value pieces that could be had here. Pearson Carmichael is back under 5K after the ridiculous game 1 he had in the Crown where he put up about 30 plus because of a bunch of steals. So you have some definite cheapies here, and I wouldn't sleep on Julian Bowie either at 3.4. I know his projection is like non-existent because he's under 15 minutes, but at 3.4, he's hit a 3, get a couple assists. He was very active in the first half of the Butler game, and I certainly think he's worth a shot there, especially if it allows you to roster 3 pay-ups instead of just 2. So come away from this game with Jacobs and Buchanan and then make your decision on pay-ups, 2 of Degenhart, Bryce Williams, or Juwan Gary. What's up, Reese? He says that is favorite size and totals. I definitely will hit you with some of those here after the DFS breakdown. Have a couple, and then I've got some props on old Prize Picks and Underdog that we like. All right, so moving on to the UCF Villanova game. This one, 3.5 point spread in favor of Nova. Total of 156.5. Another one that's pretty high up there. UCF, man, got to give it to them. No Keyshawn Hall, no Mikey Williams, no Jalen Sellers, no JJ Traynor, no Raucus Jokius. They've been down serious players, man, especially rotational pieces like Taylor Williams and, of course, superstar Keyshawn Hall, who's now on his way to Auburn. But yet they find themselves in the Crown semifinals. And you might say, it's the Crown. Who cares? The field's not that strong. These teams care. Let me assure you, there is money involved here, NIL to the programs, but also to the players. These 4 teams are now into the money round. So no matter what happens from here on out, these 4 teams are going to get money for their school and themselves. So these guys care. Don't get it twisted. And UCF is playing the best basketball, somehow playing much better even without Keyshawn Hall. Anyways, projected starting lineups here: Darius Johnson, Mocham, Debo, Dallin Coleman, Tyler Hendricks, and Niels Machowski. Niels Machowski and Tyler Hendricks both are in the transfer portal, but geez Louise, man, UCF should do everything they can to keep them, especially Tyler Hendricks. I wouldn't be surprised if some mid-tier P4 squad that misses out on some of the higher-tier transfers throws a bag at Tyler Hendricks. He's looked incredible in the Crown so far. I don't know why he was playing like 8 minutes a game. That dude deserves way more playing time. On the Villanova side, same starters as always: Eric Dixon, Wooga Poplar, Jameer Brickus, Enoch Bokai, and Jordan Longino. Already mentioned who would be out here. UCF down about 5-6 pieces. That's caused their rotation to be about 7 deep. You're going to see here we have some supreme value. So we'll be able to fit those pay-ups in the Nebraska-Boise State game a lot easier here because UCF guys, I don't know, DK fell asleep at the wheel here. I don't know why Tyler Hendricks' price would have dropped to 3.9 after he was priced at 4.8 last game. And yeah, he had a little bit of a down game, but he still scored over 14 real points. So he's a really nice play at 3.9. Niels Machowski at 4.1. Both of them value pieces that we've got to play. So you get Hendricks, Niles, and Cale Jacobs into your lineup. You can really do some damage. And Enoch Bokai, he's projecting at nearly 5x at a 4.4 price. you have a ton of salary savings that's going to allow you to get to those payups. Now, I think I value the payups in the Boise State game more, but obviously here in the UCF Villanova game, we have Darius Johnson, who just threw down a 50-piece last game. Eric Dixon, who is Mr. Second Half. He got like 4 fantasy points in the first half of several games over the last month. Then he finishes with 35 to 40. I don't even trip. One player, Eric Dixon, I said it to my man, John, aka Varnicus. We both were playing Eric Dixon, and we both said to each other, man, he's got 6 fantasy points at halftime, but we're not going to trip because he's probably going to end with 40. He ended with 37. Luka Poplar, not as much of a pay up here. I think Poplar and Juwan Gary are your 2 best leverage opportunities here because nobody's going to roster either of them. They're in that second tier price points, and they're just not going to get there. People are going to pay up directly. So Poplar had the really, really weird second half where he scored 2 real points. I don't know. But Eric Dixon should see a sizable amount of ownership. And you can see there a team, such a fast-paced top 5 and tempo for most of the season in their conference, UCF. A lot of upside here for fantasy points. Players and teams usually do quite well against them, and that's why Eric Dixon at 9.2 and 38 minutes is projecting well over 4x. Additionally, you have some value pieces. Tyler Perkins off the bench at 4K. Jordan Ivy-Curry is down to 4.8. I would caution against that. Now, Jordan Ivy-Curry has not started either game in the Crown like I thought he would. The first game, I was pretty high on him coming into it. Didn't start, played reduced minutes, didn't make value. Price dropped. He was super chalky last time out, came off the bench, didn't make value. But now that price is dumped again to 4.8. And he's still seeing around 25 to 26 minutes off the bench. But those bench minutes are coming in weird, like 3 to 7 minute spurts. So he's really not getting the opportunity to take shots or get into a rhythm. He's taking shots kind of cold off the bench, and that's impacted his scoring dramatically. So I think a lot of people are just going to click him in because he does project decently and he's so cheap and people know that name and what he's done in the past. But I would caution against that. I think that could potentially be some bad chalk. I do like Dallin Coleman at 3.7. He's really cheap as well. Not going to be rostered by the masses. Doesn't project all that well because his shot rate's not there. He doesn't really score a lot, but his peripherals have been solid. And just last game, he had multiple stocks, rebounds, assists. He's going to contribute a lot. So he's another one of the kind of leverage play values that you can look to. Darius Johnson at 10.3. It's a lot to ask. It's an astronomically high price. And you can see projection-wise, he's about 32, 33 fantasy points. But I think you can, in your mind, think he's probably going to push towards 40. The Villanova matchup isn't great long, over the terms of, the 5-6 month season. But I think in this, kind of smaller span here in the Crown and the way he's playing and no Keyshawn Hall at that, you can realistically think he's probably going to give you close to 40, but how much more than that will he get? And he's been in some foul issues. He shot ridiculously well. He has turnover issues as well. He's kind of a secondary pay up for me as well. And I think most people will probably feel the same, rostering Dixon, Bryce Williams as the 2 locks for most. So you get some leverage there on him as well. Mocham, same thing. He's 7.4, probably not going to be rostered by many. Has a block, rebounding upside, can hit threes. Definitely an NBA prospect. Probably will hit the transfer portal after this. We'll see. But he's definitely a nice GPP look as well. But coming out of this game, Niles, Hendricks, lock buttons, Eric Dixon would definitely be my favorite pay up. GPP looks on Luka Poplar and Darius Johnson. And I also like a little bit of Debo Coleman here. Core for the Crown slate here. Cale Jacobson, Tyson Degenhardt is my favorite pay up on the slate. And then Tyler Hendricks / Niles Kowski. So that is how we will do it. I do like the UCF plus 3.5. I think this is a 1-possession game the whole way. UCF's actually probably live to win the game too, the way that they're playing. Wouldn't it be something if they're able to win the Crown, get that $300K in NIL money without Key Hall? That would be a pretty big deal. And then I also like Boise State minus 1.5. Nebraska messing about. Like they were way deeper, way better than that Georgetown team. I mean, Georgetown rolling out a squad without Jaden Epps, no Thomas Sorber, no Micah Peavy. no true fielder. Like that was a Malik Mack, hero ball, and then a bunch of role players. And you could say what Jordan Burks has upside to be a star, and Drew McKenna's got some upside, but he's super raw. There's no way that Nebraska they shouldn't have been able to push Nebraska the way that they were, and they were very close to beating Nebraska. I couldn't fathom that. So I think against a team that has their stuff together, a lot more continuity, and has basically their full allotment of players in Boise State, I think Nebraska's in trouble here. So Boise State -1.5 and straight up, and then UCF +3.5 sprinkle the money line there. Those are two that I'm going to be betting pretty heavily here on the Crown. Which you can get on Boyd Sports app, which I think might be only available on the West Coast, and then also on Circa. All right, let's move on to the Final Four slate. I feel like we got to kick the, when I said this, I wrote my article earlier, the final countdown song was playing in my head, and I would play that right now if it wouldn't have getting us a copyright strike due to playing copyright written music, but you guys all know that song. So all right, let's jump into the Final Four. This is a situation here where all 4 number 1 seeds in the Final Four, and there's a lot of the media that always picks the 4 1 seeds, and we're all like, hey, that's not going to happen, and it typically doesn't. And I think it'll surprise some of you here to hear how little that actually happens. It's very, very rare. Somehow, this is only the second time that all 4 top seeds have made it to the Final Four, and that's since tournament expanded 64 teams, which happened in 1985, the year that yours truly was born. It was a good year. So that's very rare. And the last time it happened, or the first time and only time it happened before this year was 07, 08. And here we are. 3 1 seeds have made the Final Four a total of 5 times. So it's really not that much when you go back and look at, hell, this is 30 plus years of tournament expansion. The 1 seeds don't really get here like this. So maybe a bit of an outlier year, but you also have 4 of these teams, in the top 10 of Ken Pom all time. So we're talking about some of the greatest teams, analytically speaking, in the history of our sport. Really, really crazy stuff. So let's start off here with semifinal number 1 between the Florida Gators and the Auburn Tigers. This is a 159.5 total. The Gators are 2.5 point favorites. Obviously, being from the SEC, these 2 teams did play earlier in the year. It was a 90-81 victory for Florida on Auburn's floor. In that one, Walter Clayton was magnifico, 9 assists. That's the first thing that sticks out. Played all 40 minutes, but 19 points, which you expect from him, 19, 20 points at minimum, but 6 rebounds and 9 assists. That 9 assists really stuck out. And if you watched that game, and I had the benefit of doing so, and if you hadn't and you got time, certainly worth going back and watching on demand if you can, because it was a very, very good game. One of the best in the SEC this year. 1 block, 1 steal, hit 4 triples. He was ridiculous. Alex Condon, 17 and 10 against that Auburn front court. He put a double-double on the table, 4 assists for good measure. Will Richard, 12 and 5. We're going to need a lot more from Will this weekend. We're going to get to him in a second. Denzel Aberdeen, this is when Elijah Martin was missing. So not only did Florida win that game on Auburn's floor, but they did so without Elijah Martin. Very important to remember. Denzel Aberdeen had 10, 3, and 2. Aberdeen, I've said it many times, he could start for a myriad of other programs coming off the bench, so it wasn't a big drop-off. Ruben Chignello, he didn't do a lot. Thomas Hoff off the bench, 16, 9, and 3. Thomas Hoff is a legend. Man, how good is Thomas? How good is he? Very good. On the Auburn side, Miles Kelly was a killer. He had 3 triples, 22 points, and 3 rebounds. Denver Jones had 7 rebounds. Johni Broome had 18 points, 6 assists, and 11 rebounds, along with 2 blocks. He was great. Off the bench, my man Tahad Pettiford had 14 and 3, and then Chaney Johnson had 13. So this was the prior game. Pulling up the projections for this one. you're going to definitely see on this slate, and it's going to be very obvious to you if it's probably already is, but I'll reaffirm that for you. This is going to be the game that the majority of the masses are on, right? The 6-man game stacks, 7-man game stacks are going to be for this game. And that is because of the fact that this one doesn't quite have the defensive prowess of the Houston Duke game. Both of these teams can get after it defensively. Do not get me wrong, but I expect this one to be played at a better pace, and I expect scoring from a fantasy standpoint to be a lot easier as well. So you can see down the line here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players projecting over 4x, and another 3 that project just under 4x. So you're going to want a plentiful, I should say, amount of ownership here. Starting with Auburn, the value pieces, Chaney Johnson at the top of our board. Chaney's been just awesome. He's still under 5K. He doesn't start, but they're playing him a lot of minutes. He's been relatively safe throughout this tournament, and he's a very important piece. Even if because he doesn't start, it does not matter. He's playing enough minutes to kind of be a starter, right? 25 minutes in just about every single game in the tournament. He played 28 against Bama State, but you can pretty much count on a 24 to 26 minute output here from Chaney Johnson. The scoring isn't always there, but he's capable, but he's rebounding at a high level, and he does a lot of other stuff, block shots, get steals. Three-point shot isn't there, and most of his shots are coming on the interior in the paint on putbacks, but he's definitely good enough here at 4.9 to get us that 20. And I think he'll do a little bit more, and you can see we have him projected at nearly 5x there with 23.62 DK points. So that's the obvious one. Denver Jones is there at 5.4. I think he's a little over-projected, I'll be honest with you. This is one I'm probably going to be lower on in the field. I did not like the way Denver looked one bit against Michigan State. My God. The shot attempts were there, but he just wasn't playmaking. Wasn't in a position to get assists, wasn't going after rebounds, just a lot of nothing out of Denver. I did not like that. He reminded me of the way that Miles Kelly played 2 games prior to that. So I'm a little gun shy on him. He's cheaper than he was at almost 6K. He'll be really chalky once again, but I do not like him here in this matchup against Florida. And I think we'll see a sizable amount of ownership on him. And that's going to be one of those kind of real big line in the sand spots for me that I'm just not going to roster him. And we already mentioned the prior game against Florida in 31 minutes at home, mind you, 2 points, 7 rebounds, and an assist. He put up 12.75 fantasy points. So I'm off of Denver Jones. I know the field is in on Denver Jones, but I'm just going to be looking elsewhere. He's not cheap enough. If he was still 4.5, 4.6, 4.8 even, then yeah, I'd bite the bullet and I'd play him because, hey, you get that 20 fantasy points probably. 15 won't kill you. At 5.4, there's still a lot of damage that can be done. I'd rather play Tahad Pettiford. Now, it's easy for me to say if I have the endless salary code, right? Because he's 6'4 compared to 5'4. That 1K is going to matter, obviously. But I'm going to find a way to play Tahad Pettiford, and I do not expect much ownership on him whatsoever. He's played 26, 29, 32, and 28 minutes in these tournament games. He's taken 12+ shots in 3 of the 4 tournament games. He's taken 6+ threes in 3 of those 4 tournament games. He's had at least 3 assists in all 4 tournament games. Love Tahad Pettiford. He is their closer. I wasn't a big fan of the way Bruce Pearl used him in the second half against Michigan State, and I think that'll be enough to just push people away. He barely covered 20 fantasy points, and that's not obviously going to get the job done at this price point. But I do think this is one where he's going to have to score a lot, right, and push towards that 30 fantasy point mark. There's just no way in the second half, especially in crunch time, when Walter Clayton's hitting his circus shots, Elijah Martin's doing his thing, Thomas, Hogg is just playing ridiculously well, future YMCA star. Pettiford's going to have to be out there. I just can't imagine him sitting as long as he did against Michigan State the last, 4 of the last 5 minutes on the bench. There's just no possible conceivable way. Otherwise, Auburn's just going to lose. So his big shot-making ability is going to be on full display here. It's a little bit high, I know, at 6'4", but I'm going to find a way to get Pettiford in there. I'm just not fading him in a spot like this. So I absolutely love him. And you can see at the price point there, 6'4", it's not as if he's projecting bad, right? 3.99x. He's right at value, and there's going to be upside for more. If this game goes to overtime, he's going to be out there. If Auburn happens to be up late, who do you think is going to be racking up those free throws? Auburn has several guys who can, but Pettiford in the God, who was it against? Why am I drawing a blank here? Too many Crown and CBI games. Creighton game. That was it. The Creighton game. He was loading points at the end of the Creighton game because he just kept getting fouled, kept racking up free throws. He added a quick 6 to 7 points in the last 5 minutes of that game, maybe even last 3, pushing his total up over 34 fantasy points. I foresee something like that happening here again if they're ahead of Florida late. And if they're not, who do you think is going to be taking threes, firing up shots? It's going to be Tahad Pettiford. And especially like when a team is down, 4, 5, and you've got like a minute and a half left, and the defense kind of lays down. They don't want to give up a 3, but they're going to contest, and the guard just kind of dribbles right into the lane and gets a free layup. Really like that when that happens, when you have that player. And I think that's going to be something that happens here. Pettiford's going to get some easy layups. They'll foul. Easy layup. They'll foul. Okay, there's 30 seconds. We got to start thinking about taking a 3. Okay, Tahad, here's your 3. So just really obvious and easy posh play of the day. Most of you at this point, if you're watching me at this point of the season, you know what that means. Kind of changed that to a Nolan Hodge play of the day here after that round 1 performance against Texas Tech. But basically our version of a sneak play where we just don't think he's going to be anywhere over 20% owned. Pettiford is just really obvious, like posh play that could easily land you a top of all tournaments. After that, Dylan Cardwell's very cheap at 4 or 5. Do we think he can stay out of foul trouble here against that Florida front court? I don't, but he's cheap. Chad Baker-Mazara is cheap at 5.9. Do you trust Chad not to be a head case? I don't. Probably won't be rostering much Chad Baker-Mazara. He's not been putting up this huge number. His price has been dropping steadily, but it hasn't dropped fast enough. This would have been a real decision if he would have been at 5K, which I kind of thought he might be, honestly, before the slate came out. If he would have been at 5K, this would have been a real decision because that would have been too low to ignore at almost 6K. He's still too high for me to really do anything with. The shooting hasn't been that great in the tournament. He was nice against Creighton before he got injured, but he's taken a ton of bad shots. And I just know that blow up head case technical foul performance is looming somewhere, and he was awful against Florida too. In 19 minutes, he had like 11 fantasy points. So no thanks for me on Chad Baker. Miles Kelly, same kind of thing at 5.6. He was better against Michigan State, especially with Denver Jones struggling, but his scoring hasn't really been there either. He put 23 real on Alabama State. Woo! But he's failed to register double-digit points, real points, in 3 straight tourney games. So I'm out on Miles Kelly as well. So Todd Pettiford all day long for me. Chaney Johnson, obvious, high chalk play, yes. And then, of course, we have to make a decision on one Johni Broome. Priced under 10K. At 9.7. Why did they have to do it to us? Why did they have to do it to us? They also priced Cooper Flagg super cheap, all things considering. In fact, there's nobody on the slate over 10K. We got 2 players over 10K on the crown slate. Johni Broome, this is going to be a real tough one. He's put up 47 and 51. I was not surprised about the Michigan game going the way it did because they weren't boxing him out. But I really thought Michigan State's front court was going to slow him down. Now, didn't fade Johni Broome because you just couldn't afford to do it on that particular slate, right? A short slate, you just had to play him. So we all played him. But I really thought Michigan State would hold him under 10 rebounds. They didn't. He had 14, and he put up a 51-point masterpiece. Now he's going up against an even more difficult front court in Florida that has all of their guys back. Alex Condon is healthy. Thomas Hav is playing ridiculous. But when you go back and look at the matchup against Florida in the regular season, 31 minutes, 8 of 19 from the field. I mentioned 18, 11, and 6. He put up a 46. He's not 10K. He's only 9.7. It's too cheap for Johni Broome. The pay up that everybody's going to use on this slate is Johni Broome. And I love Johni Broome. I have been a big fan of his since he made that huge tournament, performance against, I think it was West Virginia when he was at Moorhead. He's great. He's fantastic. He's won us a bunch of money. We faded him a bunch of times. We've won some money doing that. We've lost some money doing that. 2-game slate here in an environment that's very conducive to fantasy friendliness, if you will. It's going to be really difficult to fade Janai Broome. I do think there's a path to doing it, especially with the front court being healthy for Florida. But man, it is just really, really, really tough not to roster Janai Broome. You almost just have to click him in. If you're running multiple lineups, it's easy not to. But if you're a single entry guy, you run just one lineup, tried and true, probably has to be Janai Broome. And it won't be easy because on the other side here, going through the Florida Gators side, we have my man Walter Clayton Jr., who has not been chalk on any tournament slate yet, but we just continued to roll him out there. It wasn't great. His game against Maryland was terrible. He wrecked us, but we went back to him against Texas Tech. What a game. Walter Clayton's responsible for the beard being shaved. By the way, it's growing in here. Right, we've got some, 5 o'clock shadow. We've got some grizzle coming in. We're doing good. The beard's on it. Don't worry. The beard's on its way back. But man, the reason why the beard's gone, passing up open layups to hit fall away contested threes and nailing them. Like, does anyone in the planet think that he's not going to just deliver another signature performance against Auburn? Is there any person on the planet who doesn't think Walter Clayton's going to score 30 plus real points once again? Hit 5+ threes, get to the foul line 1,000,000+ times. If there is, raise your hand and tell me. I don't know how you don't roster Walter Clayton in this spot against Auburn. He is just, the clearly the most clutch player left in the tournament, and there's a lot of them. This tournament has a lot of guys capable of delivering at a high level. This is the top 4 teams in the country, in the sport, analytically and with our eyeballs. And I just don't see how Walter Clayton is not a guy that goes completely ballistic. Against Auburn in that regular season win, again, really magnificent, 19-6-9. That was good for 44.5 DK points at 8.5. Yes, please. I would love that. Walter Clayton, the number 1 Florida play, the number 1 overall play on the slate in general. You can look at but he's only projecting at 3.9, 33. I don't know. That's a lot of sound. No, he's putting up 30 real. I'm sorry. I trust our model. Our model's been great, especially the last month of the season. But Walter Clayton is going into the lineup and he ain't coming out. So we love Walter Clayton, and I suspect the entire field will as well. Then you got some cheapies here. Elijah Martin at 6'3". He's intriguing. He's a nice pairing partner there. I think you want to go with the front court option with Clayton, but Martin is definitely a guy capable, and he's going to be forgotten by most. And then, the ultimate contrarian's play here is Will Richard, who is only 5.8K after a very pedestrian game against Texas Tech. He was in some foul trouble, and he wasn't really looking for a shot. That's a little bit scary for me. One thing about Will is he's a first-half player. So you've got Eric Dixon, who's a second-half player. Walter Clayton tends to be a little bit of a second-half player, and there's a number of other guys who kind of start slow and finish fast. Will starts fast, finishes slow. So if you do plan to roster him, it needs to be one of those halves where he's got 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 15 points. Like, he's done this many times. He'll put up a 25 in the first half, and then he'll kind of ghost it in the second. So if you do plan on rostering him, you just got to hope for that huge, huge first half. He's been good in the tournament, don't get me wrong, but he hasn't put any performances together where it's like, man, he really crushed it. I guess maybe the UConn game, he had 15 and 6. He did eclipse 30. Which you'd love that at 5'8". Like, the price drop here is just too good to ignore, and I think people are going to overlook that. So he is one that I'm certainly considering. You can see we have him right around 4.4x on the projection there. He's definitely a potential tournament winner, but he's got to do it in the first half. He honestly has to do it in the first half, which I know kind of sounds funny. 31 minutes, he took 13 shots against Auburn in that win. He had 12 points, 5 rebounds, and an assist, right around 22, 23 fantasy points. Not quite enough there at 5'8", but they're definitely going to need more out of him. And after the last Florida game, when Clayton legacy game, Thomas Hogg legacy game, said to a few people, they're going to have to get a hell of a lot better performance from Will Rashad. He's going to have to be more involved in the game if they're going to beat Auburn here. So I do expect that to happen. As far as the front court options go, Alex Condon is only 6K. Like, hello. He has been not the greatest, right? He's dealt with some early foul issues in the tournament, but he's been fine. But they're healthy in the front court. Micah Handlogden's getting minutes. Obviously, Thomas Huff is playing out of his mind. Ruben Chinyello is playing 15 to 20 minutes, and he's grabbing a bunch of rebounds. So there's a lot of mouths to feed in the front court here, but Condon's price is not 7K like it's been. It's 6K. And you can see the projections can note that and see, wow, this guy's got great rates. Why is he so cheap? He's playing 26 to 27 minutes. He's liable to put up a 5X score. He can do it here against this Auburn team. He can. That price is very cheap. And I think most people, he'll probably get some big ownership here, and he's 200 more than Will Rashad, and I think he'll see, quadruple the ownership there. Obviously different positions, but I think at this point people expect his upside to be a little bit more, and he had 17 and 10 against Auburn in 33 minutes in that win. 38 fantasy points. So going to be hard not to want to use him, but there is a obvious and scary thought of, wow, they're really deep. What can we expect minutes wise? He's probably not playing 33, right? 26 to 27. It's going to be really, really hard not to use him, but there is a path to him failing, but a really big path to him succeeding as well. Chinyello's cheap at 4K. I don't know that I would go there. Micah Handlogden at 3.5, very cheap. Wouldn't probably go there either. Minutes are down for them. And then at 7K, price is kind of reversed here between Thomas and Alex. He's now 7K, while Alex Condon is 6K. Thomas Hoff is a really strong play in all formats. I mean, back-to-back games over 35 fantasy points. I'm just worried about jumping on that or staying on that at this point and having him fail a tremendous amount. And fail for him at 7K could be like 20. He's not going to put together like a 10 or anything like that. But I'm just really nervous that he's putting up maybe a 3X score here. So it's a really big decision point between Thomas and Condon, 1K difference. I think it's clear you don't want to play both in the same lineup. You want to definitely have them separated. So that's kind of where my head is at there. Walter Clayton is definitely going to be the guy, and then a decision between Condon and Hoff. All right, moving right along here to the second game. Let's pull up the right screen. Duke versus Houston. Duke is a 5.5 point favorite. It's a total of 135.5. What do you need?
Where's my little puppy book?
I don't know where it is. You're just going to have to wait.
I gave it to you.
It's probably on the bookshelf. So why don't you go check there, and then I'll check after I'm done. All right, so it's total 135.5. Duke is a 5.5 point favorite. Definitely love to bet Houston plus 5.5. The FTN model loves it as well. That just seems like a very strong, sharp bet for Houston, right? And by the way, Florida minus 2.5. We're on that as well. So this is one where you can expect the masses to be on just one, maybe two players from this game. So you can really try to get different by having more pieces. And I know defensively in the total and everything, but this is one of those games where I think people are just going to assume it's going to be lower scoring, or there's going to be nobody who makes value. But you're going to see a ton of guys who actually do, because there's going to be a lot of rebounding opportunities, stocks. Like peripherals in this game are going to be solid for a lot of pieces. And it might surprise you to see that some of the players in this game do project so well, even against Houston. Guys like Zion James, because they're only 4.7. Cooper Flagg at 9.5, still projecting gangbusters, if you will. I don't know why I said gangbusters. I feel like I'm a third grade substitute teacher all of a sudden. Kaman Malawak, he's projecting well. So there's some pretty strong options in this game that you can use. We'll start with the Houston side, where I think they're the least likely to see any ownership. And honestly, I'm kind of on that same boat. I would be normally looking to get to some more Houston just because I know that most people aren't. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I'm a little bit scared of this Duke team. I'm betting Houston, yes, but I'm a little nervous about Duke and the way they're playing defense. And I think Duke's whistle travels well. Those of you in the community have heard me say that many times. I don't know what it is about Duke, but they get the favorable calls in whatever gym they're in, whatever city, whatever area code. It just doesn't matter. So I am nervous that Houston might get a bad whistle, and that means foul trouble for guys like JoJo Tugler, Javier Francis, Juwan Roberts. Very, very worrisome. GPP looks, these guys are great. Alt builds, like load up on Houston mini stacks and alts. I think it's going to be surprisingly good. And if any of these games could go overtime tomorrow, I say all four, but the two final four games, it could be this one. It would be this one, honestly. I know Florida Auburn is going to be fun, but I think that the Houston Duke game is the one that like triple overtime is going to happen. Everyone's going to be like, oh, why did I only roster one person, right? Manny Sharp, very nervous about him as well at 5'7". I think Juwan Roberts is our most realistic path to getting some Houston exposure here at 6'2". Now, he was in horrible foul trouble against the Vols, only played 16 minutes, but he put up almost 20 fantasy points. It was very clear that had he played about 35 minutes, like I had him kind of spotted to, he was going to break the slate. He was absolutely dominant every time he got a post touch against Tennessee, but he just couldn't stay on the damn floor. I think we see him have a game similar to what he did against Gonzaga, where he put up 18, 8, and 5. Like that type of performance for Juwan Roberts here against Duke. Simply can't afford to get into foul trouble. Can't happen. Had 4 fouls against Gonzaga, 0 against Purdue, 4 against Tennessee, and 0 against SIUE. Can't happen. Make it stop. Make it stop. If he can stay out of foul trouble, I think he has a big game. So, like Juwan Roberts, the best. Don't trust JoJo Tugler, even though I love JoJo Tugler. And I don't trust Manny Sharp to be this three-point assassin. He was hitting the most ridiculous contested threes against Tennessee. I just don't see that happening. And the thing about Manny Sharp is he's not exactly cheap at 5'7", nearly 6K. He doesn't produce much in the secondary categories. He's just going to score. 15 to 17 real points might sound nice, but when it's paired up with 1 rebound, 1 assist, it just doesn't go that far. And his best game that he's had in probably a month was that Tennessee game, and that was still only 24 fantasy points. So I think some people will go to Sharp, and he typically projects pretty well in the model. But you can see this time, not quite as much. He's down below 3.8x, and I just don't think he's going to be worth it here. Now, with the lead guards, LJ Cryer and Milos Uzan, they don't go off together. Like, that's just not going to happen. We don't see it. We see one game, LJ Cryer does all the heavy lifting. Like the Gonzaga game, LJ Cryer was absolutely ridiculous. And then against Tennessee, he was, again, ridiculous, 17-7 on his way to 35. Against Gonzaga, 32-3 on his way to 42. In those games, what did Milos Uzan do? Well, he had 15 against Tennessee and 22 against Gonzaga, which isn't horrible. The game against Purdue, in which LJ Cryer was non-existent, Milos put up 35, nearly 36. So it's clear they're not going to go off together. They're going to need to in order to beat Duke, but I just don't think we're going to be trusting that. Milos is not cheap anymore at 6'5". The days of him being, under 6K are pretty well over. And LJ Cryer is 7'2". Going to be difficult to get to that price on him also, although he was 7'6" against Purdue. Both luxury plays, both I expect to be under 15% owned, which is massive for a 2-game slate. Maybe they get a little bit higher, closer to 20%. Seems unlikely. Great leverage opportunities here. Houston mini stacks are extremely interesting against this Duke team. But I think I'm coming away with this one just on Juwan Roberts. And as far as him making my main lineup, that'll be hit or miss. I haven't decided yet. Do have some intriguing value, at least, with Milik Wilson at 4'3", who's going to be playing healthy, and Terry Arsenault at 3'9". Arsenault played some more minutes against Tennessee, and he was much more of a factor than we've seen. We've seen this, throughout this season. Terry's been a decent enough 3-point shooter. He does get peripherals when given the minutes. Like maybe we see him get closer to the 22 minute mark here against Duke. And if he does, I think we're talking about a sneaky value piece that could end up on the optimal. But the minutes are simply going to have to be there, right? At about 20, he's about 13, 15 fantasy points. I think it underrates him a little bit just because how he's played lately. But I am feeling like a Terry Arsenault GPP game could be in order here. And Milik Wilson, if he gets anything over 20 minutes, I think he'll make value as well. But we just don't really need them because of the cheapies that we're getting on the Auburn side. And obviously on the Duke side, we have a couple of cheapies here, especially with Zion James. All right, on the Duke side, you could make a case for playing Cooper Flagg, and it's almost worth playing him because I think Janai Broom's ownership and single entry, high dollar, all of that stuff is like 70%. Cooper Flagg more like 30, if that. So there's a big case to be made here for playing Cooper Flagg. Flagg did get the AP National Player of the Year announcement today. So, him and Janai Broom were battling that out. And Broom's been arguably almost better in the tournament. But Flagg did get the award there. Whichever of the two you take that gets 35 or under 40 is, going to torpedo you. But there is major leverage here with Cooper Flagg, and we don't normally get leverage of any kind with Cooper Flagg because he's normally so popular, and he's only 9.5. And I'm going to be very intrigued to see how many people simply try to just plug both of them into their lineups and go with a bunch of spotty value from that point. Raw points on this slate could absolutely matter, but I think that the 6-man stack at minimum from Auburn, Florida just makes way more sense. And perhaps if you only take, Walter Clayton and not Janai Broom, then you go Clayton and a bunch of Florida Auburn values, then you can get Cooper Flagg pretty easily as your 1-piece, your 2-piece. Some different build ideas. All I know is under 10K Cooper Flagg in competitive games has been absolute nails. Last time it happened against Arizona here, Sweet 16, he put up 57. I think we can easily write off, that's the wrong word. We can easily put Con Knipple, Tyrese Proctor into secondary tiers, not main lineup material. 7.5 for Con, 6.6 for Proctor. Proctor's been great, playing extremely well. 3 of the 4 tournament games, he's been over 30 fantasy points. Certainly can't overlook that, but he's 6.6 against Houston. I don't know about that. Kaman Malowax is projecting pretty well at 6'1". His size, his rebounding, his interior moves, they're going to need his toughness against Houston. And I definitely think he's going to be a guy who can end up on the optimal lineup here. And we saw against Alabama with more minutes, he can really put on a show. He's a highly rated recruit. He's going to be a first-round draft pick, high draft pick. He is very, very good. And I think the rest of the country got a chance to see that. So I think he's going to play a close to 30 minutes here again if he can stay out of foul trouble, and Houston's going to have their work cut out for him. But I'm really looking forward to this front court matchup. As far as the Duke values go, Zion James is there at 4.7. The model loves him, and I'm feeling like he's not going to get as highly owned as he probably should be simply because of the Houston matchup. And I know he hasn't been great, but this is exactly the type of game where they brought him on the roster for this type of game. Caleb Foster's simply not going to be playing 20 minutes. They're going to need Zion James to play 30-plus minutes here. I'm very, very confident in that. He can rebound at a high level. He can facilitate. He can hit shots. There's a lot of different things that James gives you, and I think he's going to be a big part of this game. So he looks like an easy play if you just go off of projections, but I think a lot of people are going to talk themselves out of rostering Zion James, which is interesting. And then the option here on Patrick Ngbangba, who at 3.6 only played 6 minutes against Bama. I was worried about that game for him because I thought the pace of it was going to be too difficult. I thought that he was going to have some real trouble with that tempo. And that is actually what happened. He got 6 minutes. Now we're talking about a more physical, slower game. he should see closer to 15 minutes. And if that's the case, we could see a really nice score out of him for 3-6 at reduced ownership. Could be a 2 early fouls on Kaman Malawach quite quickly. And if that happens, Mbongo is going to see a nice spike. I will get it for you when I'm done, I said. So about 14, 15 minutes, I'm definitely thinking that he's worth a shot, especially if you're going to go flag and broom together. 18, 16, 12, and 6. The minutes have been diminishing, but I have it on good authority that he's going to play more here. So at 3-6, with his rates, his fantasy point per minute total, he can definitely get it done. And you look at the, let's see, what do we got him at here? 12 minutes. Like if he gets close to 17, 18, you can see it turns into a slate breaker very, very quickly here as a value. So we'll see if we can get him to that minutes total. Right now, I just have him penciled in at 12, but I'm definitely considering him. All right, Final Four time. Let's get it. Johnny says, tomorrow can be legendary or crushing. Yes, we have the Florida future. We need it. We're going to get it. Houston's going to learn about that Cameron whistle. Yeah, the Duke whistle travels well, man. It definitely does. And for their opponents and anyone who doesn't like Duke, it feels like you're in Cameron when you're not. So definitely nervous about that. All right, so what's the core looking like here for the Final Four slate? Chaney Johnson, obviously, best sub 5K play on the slate, in my opinion. Walter Clayton, obviously. We've been rostering Walter Clayton like relentlessly this tournament. Why stop now? We've taken the good with the bad with the good. Now we're going to get the legendary. Last game was semi-legendary. Now we're going to get the legendary. And then I put Janai Broom or Cooper Flag because I encourage you to make your own choice there. Right now it is Janai Broom for me, but the leverage part of me really wants to go Cooper Flag. I just have this real nagging feeling that the Duke-Houston game it's going to be close, number one, but it's going to go in overtime, maybe 2, and that's just going to like pump Cooper Flag's stats up even more. So I'm a little bit worried there. And we know Broom, I mean, shoot, he barely practiced. He's getting hurt every single game. I mean, what the hell? You know, there's some concern there. The Field of 68 guys made the joke that he was faking. They weren't really saying that, but you know, sometimes it looks like he might be. He's like, oh, I give him my arm, and then he comes in and dunks and hits a left-handed three-pointer. Like, okay. I love Janai Broom. I've loved him since Morehead State, but you're kind of doing things that make you a little unlikable, brother. So yeah, tough decision there. But right now it's Janai Broom for me. But God, man, I really want to roster Cooper Flag against Houston. It's tough. It's tough business. Expect most of your opponents to have 6 at minimum from the Auburn, Florida game, but probably 7. So you can use that knowledge. If you can find a second player from the Duke and Houston game to roster and not hate yourself, do it. Recap of the best bets. Houston plus 5.5. Florida straight up against Auburn, but also minus 2.5. UCF plus 3.5 against Villanova, and then Boise State minus 1.5 against the Crown Tournament representative, the Cornhuskers of Nebraska, who just got Price Sandfort from Iowa, by the way. It's the interconference transferring. You just never would have thought that. Huh, Alex? You never would have thought interconference transferring would be so prevalent. It really makes me a little bit weirded out. But we're here, and it's now, and it's happening. All right, let's do this. Let's go to the right document here. So we'll bring up the Final Four slate because I'm sure that's the one you guys care about the most. But I know there's degens out there like me that are going to be grinding that early as well. We'll put this up, and then I'm going to go into the props on Underdog and Prize Picks and knock out a couple of those, and then we'll head out of here. We will get a good night's sleep and be ready for the Crown. Wake up with coffee and Crown. Not that kind of Crown, Alex. And then we'll have the Final Four, and we'll do our thing. Hoops all day long. All right. By the way, if you really want to look at this and just look at the model raw, because I'm going to do a few minor adjustments, tweaks, tinkering, but Cooper Flag there projecting as the 4th highest X value. Janai Broom, 9-10 range. 43. It's not a huge deal because they're both right around 43, 45 fantasy points, but it's a little interesting. I think the slate will be won obviously on that decision, Flag versus Broom, but also the Condon versus Thomas Hoff decision. That one looms large, and I think it's a lot bigger choice than people are going to understand. And that 1K is going to go a long way, especially if Alex Condon outscores Thomas. All right, so I'll leave that up. Take a look at Mo here. Underdog. We can count on Underdog to have crown props because they have all crown tournament long. And we have been pelting them on fantasy points. The fantasy point totals, they've just been like way low on. So they were at like Tyson Dagenhart 27, Malik Mack 25, like really, really low. I'm willing to bet they're not going to offer fantasy points anymore because they've been getting destroyed, not just by us, but I'm sure everyone. And I'm right. So they have PRA points. They don't have any fantasy point totals for the crown games, which I don't blame them. They were absolutely getting destroyed. Bryce Williams, like 32.5 fantasy points. He was putting up like 800. So looking at the props here on Underdog, I definitely like 8.5 rebounds and assists, the over for Tyson Dagenhart. His peripherals are going to be solid here against the Cornhuskers, so I'm a fan. Juwan Gary over 16.5 points. I think he hit some threes here. He's just really confident in Juwan Gary. I think not enough people realize just how good he is, so I'll take the over 16.5 for him there. We'll go under 13.5 points for Andrew Meadow. I think the presence of Buchanan there just kind of hurts him a little bit too much. UCF Villanova game. They're not offering a Wooga Poplar points prop this time. Man, guy killed me. Just killed me. Got to take Eric Dixon over 23.5 points. It's so many points, but like, is he just not going to continue to put up 28 plus real against UCF? I'd have to say yes. So over 23.5 there. Let's see. Darius Johnson, I'm not taking his 22.5. That's a little bit too much for me. I would take, let's see. I'd actually take the under 22.5 for Darius Johnson. It just feels like a lot against Villanova. He can certainly do it. We just saw him do it, but I'm going to take the under 22.5 points for him there. Moving into the Final Four slate. Give me a point prop on Walter Clayton. I dare you. They do give us a fantasy point total on Walter Clayton at 31.8, 31.85. They always do these weird numbers. That one seems very easy, but because of the fact that he doesn't get the most peripherals, it could end up being a little bit tougher. That's why I wanted a point prop for him instead, which I think is 19.5 on like DK and FanDuel. I like the over 3.5 assists for Walter Clayton. That's the one we're going to hit. He had 9 against these guys last time. He's been getting about 4, so I'll take the over 3.5. And when you look here, let's see. Where are you at, Walter? It's at 3.86. I'm taking the over 3.5. I think he has 5 plus, so we'll go with that. The Janai Broom PRA numbers are ridiculous. I do like his over 10.5 rebounds. I'm just not betting against him rebounding anymore against any of these front courts, so we'll take the over on that one. Miles Kelly under 20.75 fantasy points. Not happening, bruh. Alex Condon over 10.5 real points, over 24.95 fantasy points, over 17.5 points plus rebounds on Alex Condon. We're leaning into the the Condon. Will Richard over 21.05 fantasy points. He does get steals, 3 points on underdog, so I'll take that. And then Todd Pettiford over 17.5 points plus assists. The Pettiford like mega legacy game has to happen here. Clayton versus Pettiford dueling legacy games. I'm all over that. And then we'll take under 14.5 points plus rebounds for Denver Jones. Under 14.5. Duke versus Houston. There was a 10.5 first half points Cooper Flag prop that I liked, but they have taken that away since. I'm guessing other people liked it as well. Let's see here. Pretty close. I don't really love any of these. Zion James over 9.5 points plus assists. That one is advantageous even against Houston. And then, so I don't really like Manny Sharp. Too close. It's 3.5 rebounds plus assists, and then 16.5 points plus rebounds. Like the under feels right there, but it's not a big enough edge for us to actually lock that in. Cooper Flag's fantasy total at 38.5. Yeah, these are all kind of rough. I will take the over 12.5 rebounds plus assists for Cooper Flag, but the other 3 games, they're much more advantageous numbers that I like, so I will go there. Let's move over to Prize Picks and see what they got for fantasy totals. A little more agreeable. Juwan Roberts over 22.5 fantasy points. EC. Walter Clayton over 34.5 fantasy points. C. And Alex Condon over 23.5 fantasy points. C. Real points. I told you, I dare you to give me a Todd Pettiford. 14. I'll take the over 14. I'll take the over 10.5 real points for Alex Condon. I think I mentioned that on Underdog as well. It's 21 for Walter Clayton. I would have liked 19. Not that I think he can't get to 21, but not a ton of edge there. Zion James over 7 points. Will Richard over 12.5 points. Tyrese Proctor under 13 points. And then we got some crown games here. They're the same, pretty much the same. There's a Wooga Poplar, 16.5 again. I'll probably rerun that, even though it's on Prize Picks, not Underdog here, just out of pure bullheaded stubbornness. And let's see, points plus assists, which has been our top prop for a lot of the season. They're also offering 17.5 for Pettiford. $9.5 for Zion James over. So nothing really great there, but a few on the fantasy side, fantasy point side for sure. All right, I think that will do it. We managed to go for an hour for 4 games by myself. This is what happens when you leave me to my own devices. And then you have my daughter coming in here just staring at me, wanting me to go find a book that she knows exactly where it is because she's the one that put it away. Those of you that are parents, I'm sure you feel my pain. Anyways, that'll do it. The Final Four show in the books. This time tomorrow, we will have a national championship game set for both the Crown and the NCAA tournament. We'll hit you with a Sunday night show to break down the national title, a very in-depth article, all kinds of bets, all kinds of DFS stuff, all kinds of props. And then Tuesday, there's going to be it's never too early to have your own top 25. So I'll have a way too early top 25 and best bets for next year. I check the transfer portal pages like every second of every day. So if anyone's qualified to drop a way too early article, it's me. Okay. Anyways, thanks, guys. On the way out, please hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed to not only FTN, but Dub Deuces 85 on all social media platforms. Make sure you have those notifications on. I am retweeting and posting my thoughts on every single transfer news and also live tweeting about the games, kind of nonstop. So appreciate your guys' continued support. We'll be back Sunday night to break down the national championship game. We'll be kind of flying high off our Crown Showdown slate, which will be happening Sunday. And then in about 36 to 48 hours or so, give or take, we'll have the one shining moment. And then we'll all kind of, as men and women, cry about the season ending because it is a very bittersweet feeling. I don't want it to end, but it's okay. It's okay. It's summertime, family time. We'll get through it together. Appreciate it, guys. Take care. And remember, go Huskies, green screens, and window trips. It's all we do here.